Hello again, everyone. So next week, like I said in my previous post, I'm going to be talking about Cleveland sports teams, which doesn't have an NHL team. And now that the NHL playoff picture has been set and we know what the first round matchups are going to be, I wanted to do a little sports chat video on the first round of the NHL playoffs and my predictions on who I think is going to advance to the second round and maybe some players to keep an eye on. So the first matchup I'm going to talk about is the Blues versus the Wild. Obviously, I'm the Wild fan, so I'm taking the Wild to win this series in 6 games. Looking at the goalies, I'm going to do that for each matchup, looking at the goalies because the success of a team and if they make it to the second round is going to rely on if their goalie can keep the opposition out of the net. So looking at the Wild goalie, obviously in Devin Dubnyk, this past season he had 36 wins with a 2.07 GAA and a 9.29 save percentage, which his goals against average save percentage was second in the league for both those categories. So if the Wild are going to advance, he's going to have to continue to play the way he had in the regular season in this first round because the Blues are going to be a very tough opponent. When you look at their goalies, Brian Elliott as well as Allen, I'm going to talk about him now. Allen is a rookie. This past year, he had 22 wins with a 2.28 GAA and a 913 save percentage, and then Brian Elliott had 26 wins with a 2.26 GAA and a 917 save percentage. So very similar stats between the two. The Blues are obviously a team that have always kind of been on the cusp of making it to the Stanley Cup. They've been a contender the last few years, so I do think the Wild have a tough opponent in them and to get to the second round, but I think they can do it. And what's nice with the Blues is they are a very good team. That has a rookie goaltender that had a great season this past year, so we can see how he keeps growing, keeps developing. And they also have Tarasenko, who's a great young player in St. Louis as well, 37 goals, 36 assists this past year. So keep an eye on him in the playoffs, see what he can do. Obviously, Parise is the guy in Minnesota with his 33-goal, 29-assist campaign this past regular season, so hopefully he can continue to play well in the playoffs, and they can make it to the second round. Second matchup, Predators versus the Blackhawks. I think the Blackhawks are going to win this series in a 7-game series. I think this is going to be one of the longer series in the first round. Predators relying on Pekka Rinne, obviously 41 wins with a 2.18 GAA and 923 save percentage. And the Blackhawks behind Corey Crawford, who had a 32 wins, 2.27 GAA and 924 save percentage. So two great goalies. Should be a long, hard-fought series that in the end in 7, I think the Blackhawks will win. Third series, Ducks versus the Jets. I do think the Ducks are going to win this series pretty quick in 5 games. I don't think they'll sweep it, but I do think they'll win it in 5. I think the Jets should be proud that they made the playoffs. It's going to be nice to have playoff hockey in Winnipeg again after this just being their second year back in the league. I just don't think they're quite ready to make a deep playoff push, but it is important that they get this playoff experience early. Now that they're back in Winnipeg and that their young players can continue to grow and get this playoff experience. Obviously, Anderson's going to be the goalie for the Ducks, 35 wins, 2.38 GAA with a 914 save percentage. And then the Jets have Pavlik, who had 22 wins with a 2.28 GAA and a 920 save percentage, but they also have a rookie goaltender in Hutchinson, who had 21 wins, a 2.39 GAA, and a 914 save percentage. So, again, the Jets have a young goalie that can continue to help them get better and make a playoff appearance again, hopefully next season. Fourth matchup, we got the Canucks versus the Flames. So 2 Canadian teams going at it in this series. I do think the Canucks are going to win it in 6. The Canucks are going to be relying on Ryan Miller, obviously, 29 wins with a 2.53 goals against average and a 911 save percentage, whereas the Flames are going to relying on Hiller, who had a 26 wins, 2.36 GAA, and 918 save percentage. So Miller had more wins than Hiller. That's a nice little rhyme there. Miller had more wins than Hiller, but Hiller had better GAA and save percentage. But if the Canucks can have solid defensive play and Miller can continue to play well, I do think the Canucks are going to win this series in 6. Flipping over to the other conference, first series I'm going to look at is another 2 Canadian teams going at it with the Montreal Canadiens playing the Senators. I do think the Canadiens are going to win this series fairly quickly. I'm going to say Canadiens win it in 5. Canadiens obviously have Carey Price in net, who I think has run away with the Vezina Trophy this year. Easily, when you look at the stats he had, he was tops in the league in most categories, 44 wins, 1.96 GAA, and a 933 save percentage. Those are ridiculous numbers. So if the Canadiens are going to make a deep playoff push, they're gonna be relying on him, and I think he can do that. Senators obviously have a fun, entertaining young goalie in Hammond. who had 20 wins with a 1.79 GAA and a 941 save percentage. Obviously, if he played more throughout the season, he could have given Price a run for his money for the Vezina if he continued those kind of stats. So I do think it's a very intriguing goaltender matchup in this series. And obviously with the Canadiens, you're going to want to keep an eye on Max Pacioretty, who this past season he had a 37 goal and 30 assist season. So he's going to be the guy that the Canadiens are going to rely on to make a appearance in the second round and a deep playoff push. But Carey Price is obviously going to be a tough goalie to beat, and that's why I think they'll win this series in 5 over the Senators. Next series, we got the Lightning versus the Red Wings. I do think the Lightning are going to win this series in 6. The Red Wings have not missed the playoffs in my lifetime. I think they've made the playoffs every year since I've been around. So the Red Wings are obviously a dynasty of a team, very competitive, lots of playoff experience. But I do think the Lightning are going to win in 6. Steven Stamkos is obviously going to be the player that the Lightning are going to rely on in this series. He had a 43-goal, 29-assist season for them. Ben Bishop is going to have to play well for the Lightning also to advance to the second round. He had a 40-win season with a 2.32 goals against average and 916 save percentage. And then when you look at the Red Wings, obviously they got Jimmy Howard, who had 23 wins with a 2.44 GAA and 910 save percentage. But they also have a rookie goaltender in Mrazek, who is going to be a good guy to keep an eye on. He had 16 wins with a 2.38 goals against average and a 918 save percentage. So we'll see who gets the playing time in this series. They might want to ride the hot hand. They might want to see what happens after Game 1, see how starts in Game 1, and then how they play will probably determine who the starter in Game 2 is going to be. But again, a team like the Red Wings, a lot of veteran presence, a lot of young players as well on that team now. Mrazek can be a goaltender to build around and have a guy that's still young and can produce between the pipes for the next 5+ years. So we'll see what happens with them, but I do think the Lightning win it in 6. Next series, we have the Rangers taking on the Penguins. I think this is going to be a very deep series. I think it's going to go to 7 games, but the Penguins are going to win it in 7. I think the Rangers have some solid talent. Obviously, their goaltending not quite as stable. Henrik Lundqvist obviously had a great season with 30 wins, 2.25 GAA, and a 922 save percentage. But they also have Talbot, who had 21 wins with a 2.21 goals against average and a 926 save percentage. So, again, those are great numbers for the Rangers. They got 2 goalies there. So we'll see who plays in Game 1. Again, it'll probably be similar to the Lightning-Red Wings series with whoever starts in Game 1 for the Red Wings. Depending how they play will determine the Game 2 starter. I think that'll be the same thing with the Rangers. Obviously, with the Penguins, they got Fleury in net, 34 wins, 2.32 GAA, and a 920 save percentage this past year. So he's going to be able to play well. If he does, then the Penguins are going to make it to the second round, but I think it is going to be a long series and a hard-fought series with the Penguins winning in 7. Obviously, the Rangers are going to rely on Rick Nash, 42-goal, 27-assist season. He's a guy that hopefully can produce for them in the playoffs, and that's why I think it will be a long series, is solid goaltending matchup. Good players, obviously, with the Penguins. I'm not going to talk about Crosby and Malkin because everybody does. The Rangers obviously got Rick Nash to rely on, as well as St. Louis. Who's a gem in the playoffs. So that's why I do think it'll be a long series. Penguins win in 7. Final series, Capitals versus the Islanders. I think the Islanders are the shock of this season, making it to the playoffs and having such a very good season that they did have, and I think they're going to win this series in 7. I think this will be another long series, but the Islanders are going to win it in 7, which I think is going to be a bit of an upset. I think most people are probably picking the Capitals to win this series, but I'm taking the Islanders in 7. Obviously, the Capitals have Holtby in net, 41 wins with a 2.22 GAA and a 923 save percentage, so that's impressive right there. And then the Islanders have Halak in net, who had 38 wins with a 2.43 GAA and 914 save percentage. So of all the goalie matchups in the playoffs, I think this is the one that's most evenly matched and has 2 bona fide stars in net and guys who have experience in net. Kind of thing. So I think that's part of the reason why it's going to be a 7-game series. I think you're going to have close games with 3-2 wins, overtimes, that kind of stuff is what's going to happen. And then you also have 2 players who, in my opinion, are the Hart finalists for MVP this season. Ovechkin, obviously, with his 53-goal, 28-assist season, and then Tavares with his 38-goal, 48-assist season. They're going to be the 2 guys that you're going to be watching on the ice this year. Tavares, I think, should win the Hart Trophy. I know a lot of people might find that a little surprising. Maybe Ovechkin's a little more deserving, that kind of thing. But I think with what Tavares has done for the Islanders, with the Islanders making the playoffs, which I don't think many people saw happening, having such an impressive season. I think Tavares is a little more deserving of the Hart. Both are equally deserving, but I think Tavares is just that little bit more deserving just because of the team he's played on, the struggles he's gone through with the Islanders, and now he's been able to elevate them to a status where they could be a second-round playoff team kind of thing. So that's my thoughts with those series. I think they're going to be a great first-round series. It's nice with all the matchups that for all Canadian hockey fans, there are going to be 2 Canadian teams represented in the final 8 teams, which is going to be fantastic just based on the matchups. So that's going to be great. If going through my full bracket with who I've said going to win each series, in the second round, the Wild are going to be playing the Blackhawks, and then the Ducks are going to be playing the Canucks. And then in the other conference, we're going to have the Canadians taking on the Lightning, and then the Penguins taking on the Islanders. I have in my finals for each conference the Wild versus the Canucks, and then the Canadians versus the Islanders, and then the Stanley Cup final is going to be the Wild versus the Canadians, with the Wild winning. Obviously, I am making this bracket with my heart, but I'm also making with my head. I do think the Wild have an opportunity to get to the Stanley Cup. I don't think this is a Cinderella story kind of thought with me thinking they can make it to the Stanley Cup final, but I do think they will. I think the Canadians are going to make it to the Stanley Cup final purely based on Carey Price's performance. If he can keep that up for the next 10-plus games and they make it to the Stanley Cup, fantastic, and that would be great. So to all the hockey fans out there, enjoy the Stanley Cup playoffs. Finally, playoff hockey is here, and next week is when all the NBA playoffs are going to start, so this is a great time for sports fans out there. You got MLB's just started this week, and now you got Stanley Cup playoffs starting next week, and then NBA playoffs starting at the end of the month. So for all those guys out there who are big sports fans, this is the time of the year that everything's happening and all good exciting things are happening. The NFL draft will be coming up at the end of the month, so all sports have things happening into them. But Stanley Cup playoffs is what I'm talking about right now. Hopefully you like my predictions. Hopefully some of you agree with them. If you don't agree, feel free to comment. Feel free to refute. I always like other people's criticism and ideas. So thanks again all for watching. You can follow me on Twitter at GHAM614. I'll be talking to you next week about Cleveland sports teams. Thanks again. Bye.